Hi, I'm Hollie B. I'm talking to you today for Red Talks, and I suppose it's in response to my very first video where I was talking about why women need Circle, but also I was watching a few of the Red Talks this morning, and in particular Tallulah's talk about disease, which is something that's very current for me at the moment, and also Adriana's talk about parenting, conscious parenting in an unconscious world, which is also very current for me at the moment. And I was really feeling the theme through those and just sort of reflecting back on my first talk. And, the thing that is strongest for me right now, the issue, whatever, is around isolation. And so I wanted to talk to you about women and isolation and what we're going to do about it as a community. And I've got notes, so if you see me looking down, there's notes because I wanted to be able to really stay focused on what it is I need to say. So I think that we have really been building for quite a while now this amazing community of women who are talking about the mystery and are talking about our connection and how important it is for us to be women together, and to respect and honour the processes that make us women. But where I feel there's a gap in our community is in the response to how we take all of that as women and women of power and we push that into the world that is family. So for a lot of us, we go to Women's Circle, but we go on our own, which I think is important. Like, please don't turn it off now thinking, oh God, she's going to tell us not to go to Circle. That's not what I'm talking about at all. But what we have is this great community of women for women where we can work together when we're on our own and we're talking in isolation about our particular, issues. But when it comes to coming back to our families and returning to our everyday life, I feel like for most women there's a lack of support in that. As Adriana was mentioning with this, in an unconscious world, how do you create... how do you be conscious all the time with your children, and how do you be soulful in the way that you parent and still have to deal with the unconscious reality of the world? It's particularly hard for women who come to Circle and they feel full and they really get inspired, but they need to return to a home that maybe doesn't support the women's mysteries, maybe the husband doesn't appreciate it, doesn't understand what she's doing, why she's doing the work that she is. Or there is no one there at all to support her, women that are on their own with their kids. And anything in between that as well, right? I'm trying to, give you this whole sphere of what I've seen of women. I love Circle and I love facilitating this space where women can come together. But my concern has been for the last couple of years around how do we then keep that support as we leave? How do we continue that feeling of empowerment as a woman when we step back into our family life? And for me, I have the support. My husband is so supportive about women's work and what I do. He understands why I do it, and would never ever make it difficult for me to go and do that. But I still feel isolated in my life. So I want to give you a bit of story around that. That I live, as you can see, in a very... this is my lounge room, which is also my house. It's a very small space, and we live out in the bush. We are off-grid. We don't have anyone very close by, like I don't have neighbours or anything who think like us or are like us. And although we have an outer community, what my community consists of is other homeschooling parents who are also far away from each other in terms of geographically far away, and are pushing themselves to the limits in what they can do every day. So when we get together, we're not really about supporting each other in any issues that we've got. What we're about is just like refueling ourselves and working out how we're going to get through the next week. Yeah. So for me, I haven't been doing monthly circles with women, and I'm really noticing a difference in that. My husband at the moment is away during the week. He works far away, and he only comes home for 2 days on the weekend. We have a new puppy who is exhausting, and as I said, I've got like 2 kids that I homeschool. So where in that is there space for me? So I find little snippets of space, yeah? And I've been getting really clear about what I want from a community that's going to support those snippets. And what I'm seeing is that so far there's not much of one. So the question for that is, how do we fix it? Or I don't know if fix is the right word, but how do we, what do we do about this? You know I'm not the only one, and I know my story is not the only expression of this isolation that we're feeling as women. We can talk it up as much as we want about being women of power. And I guess a big thing for me is I have a struggle in my head around saying I am a woman of power and then saying I'm weak and vulnerable and I need help. Yeah. And that, I think, is the biggest thing that isolates us as women in this particular setting as mystery women. We're talking about being strong, and we're talking about coming together with the things that we believe in, but it's difficult to say, actually, this is too hard for me at the moment. So what do we do? I think we keep talking. We be authentic in our pain and our... I think isolation brings up fear, so we be authentic in our fear. The idea that we could do all this work on ourselves to be women of power and, to trust our processes and all of that stuff, but then we can go back into the fear so easily, or, the pain so easily. That is a concern, I think, for a lot of women, because it's like, well, I've done all this work, I'm not allowed to say that there's anything left wrong. Tallulah kind of touched on that in her talk of healing, in that we're always healing, and I think this is something we need to recognise and acknowledge as a group, that it's not something that stops. Just because we do the work doesn't mean that we're perfect, because we're meant to be imperfect. We feel it. That's been the process for me, is just feeling where I'm at, what it's like, knowing that everything does pass, but really feeling it and acknowledging it and delving it. The shamanic path is about being able to process what we've got, pull it apart, look at who we are and what something is for us at the very core of our being, and then, put it back together and keep going with that. So we have to feel it, we have to acknowledge it, and that's why I wanted to talk today, because I want us to acknowledge on a community level that there is an isolation issue. And then we, once we feel it, then we make choices around it. So for me, there are outer communities that supposedly support women and the creation of community. However, if it doesn't support women being mothers and supporting their family and how they have to do whatever it is that they do for family, then as far as I can see, it's not a community. I want village community. I don't know if you can do that globally, but we certainly have to start somewhere. So we make choices about the kind of community we have close to us. When I meet with my group of women that are, other mothers, what am I going to do in that space? That's a choice I have to make. Are we going to talk? Are we going to be authentic about where we're at? There's a big difference between women saying, oh, my husband's doing this and the kids are doing this and oh, blah, blah, or actually saying, you know what, I've had a really hell week and I just want someone to hear me for 5 minutes. And when we hear each other, that's where the power is. So for me, what we do about this community at the moment is we talk and we hear and we listen actively, and then we see what we can do from there. I really subscribe to the idea that no one else can do it for me. Whatever my issue is, no one can fix that. So I have to make a choice and a process to do that myself. And it won't always work the first time. Whatever I'm trying to process and create now might not be the final product, but I don't think the final product is what we're aiming for. It's the process that we need to have our attention to at the moment. So what I'm doing for me at the moment is that I am choosing to turn away from things that don't support family community, whether that's in the outside world or whether that's in the women's community. If I feel that to be involved with something within the women's mystery work is going to make my life more difficult with my family, then I'm not going to do it. And if I feel that people are saying one thing but not supporting family community, then I won't do it. And so I've had some conversations with dear friends within the women's mystery movement lately, and we're talking about, on a larger scale, what are we going to do? How are we going to create village community with the women that are already here and the women that might be feeling isolated? How are we going to bring families together in that movement? Not just women on their own, you know. And I do believe that there's a time and a place for women to come together that are just women, and it's really important that we can have that space and we can talk. But I'm at the point in my life where I need it to go that step further, and I need to be able to do that with my family. You know, I don't have the possibility of just churning them out to somewhere else. As a home educator, they are with me all the time, and so I need to be able to create a world that allows them to be there. Yeah. So these are the sort of things that we're talking about and how we can create. So if you've got ideas around that, or if you're feeling any of this stuff that I'm talking about around isolation, I'd love to hear about it, because it is something we need to talk about now. You know, the work of the women that have come before us has been important and has got us to where we are, and now we keep moving forward into what we want in the new way. Yeah, and for me, the new way is family way. So that's probably all I've got to say today. I do want to hear from other women, particularly women who are feeling isolated, and even if it's just that, that you're not alone. Because the reason I wanted to talk about this today was because I know that if I'm feeling this, then there are other women who are too, and therefore we need to bring it out in the open. Yeah, it can't stay hidden. When we hide things within our communities, that's when we start creating disease on a community perspective, and that's not good. That's no good for our future. So welcome to the world where we talk about isolated women. Welcome to the world where we connect in an authentic way and we make our own village as we move into the new. Hoi nā te a, so it is. Mai nā hea, thank you, and I'll see you later.